Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a totally captivating visual journey that reveals the literal magic of the artistic process. We're going to deconstruct, step by step, how a masterpiece is forged practically out of thin air. It's a process that usually happens behind closed studio doors. But today, we've got a front row seat to watch a painting evolve from scratch. Okay, let's dive right into the core question we're looking at today. How does a random smear of paint become a masterpiece? Because we are literally about to watch a subject evolve from absolute nothingness into a living, breathing portrait. When we look at a finished painting hanging in a museum, it's so easy to take for granted the massive amount of foundational work that went into it. Like, how do you actually get from an empty canvas to profound human emotion? Let's find out. We start right here with raw, formless brushstrokes. Just look at this. Muddy browns and blacks that give absolutely zero hint of what's to come. At this stage, it's completely abstract, literally just colored mud smeared onto a textured surface. There's no face, no light, no story. It's just raw material waiting to be commanded. Notice how the artist is aggressively layering these dark tones now. They're creating a chaotic, abstract underpainting that sets a really murky, atmospheric stage. The canvas is getting darker, heavier, and kind of more complicated. The artist isn't even slightly worried about details yet. They're simply establishing a tone, a mood, and a solid base layer for the light to eventually push against. But check out the massive leap here between the formless blobs on the left and the sudden appearance of these sharp, geometric scaffolding lines on the right. We're going straight from unstructured chaos to calculated order. Those thin, sharp, dark lines, they aren't just random scratches. They're mapping out proportions, establishing the angle of a head, the placement of features, cutting right through that abstract mud with clear mathematical purpose. Which brings us to the next phase. Part 1. The hidden architecture. Here we are structuring the portrait, relying on the invisible skeleton that dictates where the shadows fall. Watch how this single, heavy block of black paint drops in on the left side. It acts as a massive visual anchor, immediately defining the negative space around the eventual subject. The artist is essentially boxing the subject in, using pure, opaque darkness to force the lighter, muddier center forward. It's a super bold, heavy-handed move, but it perfectly establishes the absolute darkest value of the entire piece. So what we're actually witnessing is a highly structured methodology unfolding. Step 1. Laying base tones to kill the white canvas. Step 2. Finding the geometry with scaffolding. Step 3. Anchoring the contrast with dark blocking. And finally, Step 4. Pulling out the form with highlights. As the artist continues blocking in these dark shapes, a clear silhouette just forcefully emerges from the canvas. It's honestly a lot like watching a sculptor aggressively chipping away excess stone. The artist isn't painting the face yet. They're painting everything around the face, forcing that negative space to do all the heavy lifting of defining the subject's posture and hood. Moving right along to Part 2, sculpting with shadows. This is a critical phase where we start creating three-dimensional volume. To truly get what happens next, we have to talk about this specific term, chiaroscuro. Originating from the Renaissance, this is the masterful, high-stakes contrast between deep, consuming darkness and piercing light. It's the visual technique that literally tricks our brains into seeing a flat, two-dimensional surface as a deep 3D space. And man, this brilliantly illustrates that exact concept. Just a single decisive stroke of lighter paint on the nose and brow instantly defines the entire structural plane of the face. Suddenly, we aren't just looking at flat shapes anymore. We're looking at a three-dimensional object physically turning toward a light source. That one single swipe of paint establishes depth, form, and direction all at once. Right here. This is the exact moment our brains lock onto a pattern. It's called pareidolia, our psychological tendency to see faces in random shapes. A single tiny dot of white paint is dropped into the dark socket, and boom, it transforms a shadow into a human eye looking directly back at us. It's pretty astonishing. With just a speck of light, the painting goes from being an object to being a presence. Let's move into Part 3, the breath of life. Now we're looking at intricate details and how they build up to bring the canvas to life. The artist aggressively sharpens up the structural highlighting on the forehead here. By adding these brighter, warmer tones to the upper crust of the skull, they achieve incredible volume. You can almost feel the bone structure beneath the skin now. The light is basically acting like a chisel, refining those broad shapes we saw earlier into a very specific anatomical reality. Then suddenly, The bridge of the nose and the cheekbone just snap into sharp, hyper-realistic focus. The contrast is being pushed way further. The lights are getting lighter, the darks are staying incredibly rich, and the transition between the two is masterfully blended. That underlying geometry from the scaffolding stage? Completely hidden now, replaced entirely by organic human flesh. Next, the heavy base shape of a flowing beard drops in, and this single addition completely shifts the visual weight and the perceived age of our subject. It anchors the bottom half of the composition and introduces a totally new texture into the mix. Though right now, it's really just a block of color. But then comes the texture. Swift, sweeping brushstrokes add brilliant tangibility and depth to the beard. The artist is using variations in tone, wisps of white and gray over that darker base, to simulate the thousands of individual hairs catching the light. It brings a tremendous amount of character and movement to the portrait. It's not just about technical rendering, though. By deepening the shadows around the hollows of the eyes and the mouth, profound sorrow and intense psychological character are injected straight into the portrait. The subject looks weathered, weary, and just incredibly real. The artist is manipulating light and shadow not just to show us what the man looks like, but to make us actually feel what he's experiencing. Finally, part 4, the final masterpiece. Let's slow down for a moment to truly appreciate how all of these elements synthesize. Just look at the delicate interplay of warm and cool tones in the weathered skin here. The subtle pinks, the rich oranges, and those cool successive shadows create a surface that feels completely organic, like it actually breathes. The harsh, chaotic lines from the beginning have been entirely consumed by this masterful, nuanced blending. The ultimate mastery of that single light source is just fully evident now. It's pulling the weary figure dramatically out from the absolute black void of the background. This is chiaroscuro at its absolute finest. The intense darkness isn't just empty space. It's a dramatic framing device that forces our complete attention right onto the brilliantly illuminated emotion in the subject's face. When we compare our starting point directly to our destination, it really highlights a staggering transformation. On one side, we had chaotic, meaningless abstraction, literally just colored dirt on a canvas. And on the other, we have profound human emotion, character, and stunning realism. It's a huge testament to the power of structured vision and iterative execution. Let's just take a second to absorb this incredible final image. It is an absolute masterclass in visual storytelling and structural rendering. Every single brush stroke, from the darkest block of background to the tiny, brilliant speck of light in the eye, works in total harmony to deliver an unforgettable portrait. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering thought to ponder. When you watch a process like this, from start to finish, where exactly is the line between raw, colored mud and a human soul? At what precise moment does the illusion become so powerful that we stop seeing paint and start seeing a person? Thanks for joining me on this visual journey, and keep looking closely at the art around you.